In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
It is 100% real. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Curious Dimension podcast, where we discuss sacred geometry, ancient civilizations, esoteric texts, and what I consider to be the biggest story in human history, UFO disclosure. Today's intro is going to be a little bit longer so that I can give some context to what we will be discussing with our guests. Today, I'll be speaking with former libertarian candidate for the governor of Illinois, Jon Stewart. Jon is also a former pro wrestler, former business owner, and is now semi-retired. For the last 5 years, Jon has done a self-funded investigation into the 1997 Area 51 alien interview film. This is a little under 3-minute section of film that allegedly shows an alien being interrogated at Area 51. I know that sounds wild. This film was originally aired on TV in 1997 and was released by Rocket Pictures. So this footage has been around on the internet for a long time, but I think most people assumed it was fake, with some hardcore believers saying it was 100% real. I don't know if this piece of footage is real or not. I do think that it would have been possible to fake this in 1997, but I'm not sure if it would have been monetarily worth it, as we will get into during the show. The whistleblower who came forward with this tape, known only as Victor, and is now dead, had only come out publicly 3 times. Once during the original release of the show in 1997, once on the Art Bell show in the same year, and one more final time in 2008 with Jeff Broadstreet in the Santa Monica Hills. I will put links to all 3 of these in the description below. A few key points that we discussed during this interview are the Wilson Davis memo, the late retired U.S. Army Sergeant Major Robert Dean, Richard Doty, and Colonel Carl Nell. The Wilson Davis memo is a 15-page set of meeting notes between astrophysicist Eric W. Davis, Admiral Thomas Wilson, where they discuss a secret program within the government to reverse engineer UFO crafts. The late retired U.S. Army Sergeant Major Robert Dean was an insider whistleblower who spoke out publicly on the UFO topic for decades and a well-respected researcher in the field. Richard Doty was a former Air Force intelligence officer who has spoken publicly on the discovery of alien life and UFOs. Colonel Carl Nell, whose CV is extensive and amazing to say the least, is a retired Army colonel, current aerospace executive, who was the Army's liaison for the UAP task force from 2021 to 2022. I'm not going to get into all the different degrees and high-level positions that he has held, because that would take a whole podcast in itself, which they may do one day. I think it is significant to add that in an article published in June of this year in the Debrief, Colonel Carnell stated that what David Grush has said about reverse engineering technologies from non-human intelligence is fundamentally correct. So that is a little overview of some of the key name aspects that we don't dive super deep into during the interview, but I thought would be a good idea to give some context. So what I want to do now is show a quick clip of the alien interview so that people know what it is that we are talking about. And then we'll get right into the interview with Jon Stewart. So if you're listening to this, you might want to switch over to the video on YouTube. I will also put a link in the description so that you can watch the full alien interview. And so without further delay, here's a clip of the 1997 alien interview, followed by my interview with Jon Stewart. I'm great. Great. It's great to have you on, Jon. Nice
Thank
to see
you so
you.
much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you doing this.
You don't have to thank me. I thank you. Thanks for getting me on.
I wanted to just go ahead and give you the microphone for a couple minutes, and let's explain to people who you are, and then we can kind of get into the footage. And I've got some photos pulled up, and we can kind of go from there.
Great. Hi, my name is Jon Stewart, 56 years old, born and raised in the far northwest side of Chicago. I'm a former high school, college, semi-pro football player, but my biggest frown is that I became a professional wrestler 6 months out of high school while I was still at Memphis State playing football, and I was a professional wrestler all the way up until around 2012 and on and off, and also a small businessman with my family business, which now I'm semi-retired. I also ran for United States Congress. I ran for Illinois governor for the Libertarian Party, and I was a fill-in candidate, replacement candidate on the ballot for Illinois Secretary of State last November. And for the past 5 years, I have done a professional, self-funded investigation with complete journalistic integrity about a very strange and bizarre documentary released in 1997 called the Area 51 Alien Interview. Now, this is not the crazy CGI ones that you see on the internet. This is a very bizarre, unprofessional looking video that everyone calls the Forgotten Alien Tape. And this bothered me in '97, just for the sincerity of it, the unprofessionalism and the casualness of it. From being in doing commercials, having tons of friends in Hollywood, and being in production and in the entertainment industry, I knew something was not right with this video, meaning that this couldn't be this bad to be allowed on network TV. Somebody could not have made such an unprofessional video, meaning no cuts, people getting in the way of the camera, just something that you wouldn't do if you were going to release this on television. And 5 years later, I sit here before you telling you that unless an army colonel can provide me the original, video or 16 millimeter film of this being hoaxed in a studio, I'm here to tell your listeners and viewers that folks get ready because David Grush, an agent of the government with a Q clearance, told you 6 months after I was telling the world that the United States government, for lack of a better word, for lack of a better definition, as outlandish as it sounds, that the United States government since 1947 has had an extraterrestrial retention and interrogation program. And proven it based on the fact of, again, journalistic investigation and still not one credible person coming forward saying, Mr. Stewart, I've got I've got evidence, that disputes your claims. It has not happened in 5
And
years, and
let's just
before I
explain to
go
people
forward.
what
Oh,
project
sure.
it is. Is that and that's Project Aquarius you're referring to? The alien
Correct.
retention program, is that correct? Okay.
Yeah,
All
project
right. Fine. I just wanted to clarify for people that, these things have names. There's a paper trail that goes back to this stuff as wild as it sounds. Did you want to get right into the video and talk a little bit about Victor, or where do you want to go from here? Do you want to kind of
well,
talk about how you
yeah,
got involved with it?
yeah, I probably think, like, just let me just do a real brief,
Okay, you go.
scope of, yeah,
Mhm.
of so it's 19, it's the start of COVID. I've had some free time on my hands that I don't usually have. I'm a workaholic, and I don't say that proudly. And this video was bothering me because a producer from California called me and that I had worked with before and said, "Look, we need some cheap, quick documentaries." I was throwing out ideas, and one of them was this video that has always bothered me since 1997. He said, it's going to be way too complicated, way too, way too thick, and sticky." And boy, was he prophetic. And so it stood on my mind. So I was in my car one day in my driveway in my home, and I said, let me just prove something about this because, folks, I went at this to prove that it was a hoax, which is what scientists do. You go to disprove your theory, not to prove it. And then in the attempt to disprove something, if you end up proving it, well, then lo and behold, there is your thesis. That's been the norm in science for decades. So I went to prove that this was a hoax, and I said, something is physical in this video. There's this being. You have two medical people that come into it to attend to it when it's in a coffee issue, a respiratory issue. You have two military people that their shoulders are in the foreground. They're actually getting in the camera view of this alien, which was called a thought projection interview, taken in 1999. and it had a bizarre monitor to the left of the beam, our right, that just went up and down. It did not go across the screen, and that always grabbed me as completely bizarre. And so I took the footage of that monitor alone, and thank God for the internet, I found 3 PhD fellows that were doing their thesis on the complete history of physiological monitors. I won't go into long stories. They wrote me back, "Mr. Stewart, we have never seen this before in all of our, 1 year, 2-year thesis investigation and in history. We've never ever seen or heard of a monitor that just stays stationary and so on and so forth. That wasn't good enough for me. When you're a journalist, you want 2 or 3 sources. I called Space Labs and Hewlett Packard. These were the companies that were making physiological monitors back in the late 80s and 90s. And Hewlett Packard wrote me back and said, "We've never seen anything like this before. We're sorry we can't help you, but we've never seen it draw on the drawing board or anything." I get an old engineer on the phone, uh, at, um, at Space Labs. This isn't SpaceX, Elon Musk. This is Space Labs
They
who
build
made
the heart
monitors for
monitors for
NASA.
the space shuttle. Is that correct?
Yeah. They made they
Okay.
made monitors for NASA, Space Labs. What a better place to go to.
Right.
Now remember,
Right.
4 people, experts have told me, we've never seen this before in our lives." And this is supposedly a second-rate video production company that might have hoaxed this. So the old cranky guy at Space Labs said, "I've been doing this for 40 years. I've never seen it. I've never heard of it." I asked him, I said, "You ever see it in a conference room, on a drawing board, in conceptual ideas, spitballing with other colleagues at a trade show?" He goes, "No, I have never, ever, ever seen this before in my life." And I'm like, "Well, thank you very much for your time." And he said, "But it might be one thing." I'm like, "Yes." He said, "It might be a one of." I said, "Okay, what is a one of?" He's like, "Well, in science or any kind of situation where you have a problem you want to address and there's no device to help you solve the problem. Let's say if you wanted to look for gold in 1929, you would develop a gold detector." I'm just being glib here. He said, "That might be a one of, was something that they built especially for this purpose." And he said, "This is a government video, correct?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, the government's infamous for building special devices like this." I said, "Sir, would you build a special physiological monitor for an off-planet biological being that didn't have the same heart, lung, organ makeup in their thoracic, area of their body?" Didn't laugh at me, didn't hang up on me. He said, "Yeah, that's exactly what you would have to do because it doesn't have a normal heart or however you said, like a human being. So you'd have to create a special monitor." So in about 2 hours in my car, 2 hours of this investigation, I had gotten some startling information that they said it looked like a real monitor, that it was coinciding with the creature's coughing, but that these 4 experts in the world, okay, had never seen anything like this device. Now, I hope people can appreciate I am maybe the only ufologist investigator that will tell you the devil's advocate, the flip side of the story too, the other possibility. And I'm not denigrating any researcher, but this is one of the caveats or one of the tenets of my research. Let me give you what other people said. I talked to special effects people who said, "Well, of course it's never been invented because it's not a real physiological monitor." Okay, it's called window dressing. It's to hook, and I'm going to use Yiddish terms here. It's to give chutzpah to the film. It's to give it more effect. And they said they could have taken a wire, pressed it against 2 panes of glass, had a laser and jiggled the laser with their finger and bounced it up and down. We did the laser experiment. We took a laser, bounced it against the glass. It didn't have any of that vibrance. We certainly didn't take the little fiber optic that they claim that you could do and do that. And then we take this video to a video expert who did the Patterson Gimlin Bigfoot film for National Geographic. Again, I'm trying to go to the top of the food chain of experts. Don't say he's the only expert, but he said, "Look, I can't tell you if it's fake or not." But there's 2 things. Did you know that the physiological monitor isn't just a pane of glass with 2 brackets? He goes, "It's actually bracketed by metal, and there's a little indentation in one of the
And
brackets,
I can pull
like a
that picture
bullet
up real quick.
cartridge, like a bullet
Let's
cartridge.
pull that picture up real quick so we got that. You should be able to see that here.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We're thinking this is just a pane of glass because it's a cheap hoax. And the video production expert tells us, no, 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 no. This is a bracket. It's got a fin on top, which you can see on the top. Right in the middle of that red circle is a bullet casing protrusion. And I just want to um, ignite people's simple thinking here. If you're hoaxing a video, you know this monitor is most
Right.
going to be not seen because it's going to be dark or grainy in the room. Why would you pick out metal bracking that has indentations and a fin and make that little cartridge protrusion? I just seemed the extra work to me seemed nonsensical. And the video expert said this, this looks like an actual device. It's got a cord coming from it, and again, not definitive, but kind of casting doubt
But
on
interesting.
his own colleagues who said, "Oh, that I could have done that." And if I could skip forward by just 1 second, folks, every special effects person tells us, "Oh, we could have done that. We could have done that." Nobody's done it. Nobody. Well, I had a guy. I could do that in 2 days in my garage. Well, why wouldn't you do it? You'd be the hero of the UFO world. We could probably do a documentary. It's ridiculous for people to just,
Right.
just throw out the egos that I have faced with special effects people. I've been a pro wrestler. Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair don't even compare to the egos of special effects people in Hollywood. I hate to say it, but I want to be truthful to your viewers. So I had some information. I also had an interaction with a United States senator. On the bottom of this film is DNI/27. And Victor tells us in the documentary, DNI is Department of Naval Intelligence. You can't research Department of Naval Intelligence. Most people will tell you it doesn't exist. So in 1999, just thinking about this film, I asked a United States senator who was in the Navy what the Department of Naval, there you go, what the Department of Naval Intelligence was. This happy-go-lucky senator turned to me with this aggressive look and said, "You don't need to know anything about that." So why are 3 letters on an alleged hoax video pissing off a United States senator? That is not making sense to me. And the Department of
And
Naval
what year is
Intelligence
that, John?
also, this was 1999 when I first ran for Congress. And Department of Naval
Okay,
Intelligence
got it.
also appears on Bob Lazar's W-2 pay stub.
Yes,
So
it does.
let's go to the DNI section. So I have a friend who's an author. He also happened to be a Navy in the United States Navy, an aviator. How about that? Caught him off guard. I texted him, Michael, is the Department of Naval Intelligence real? He said, yes. I said, I want to be clear. I'm not talking about the office, ONI, of Naval Intelligence, the department. He goes, I know what you said. All right. He said, I know what you wrote. Yes, the Department of Naval Intelligence is real. I'm like, why can't I find it? Here it was, the first bombshell. You're never going to. It's an agency buried in the ONI, the Office of Naval Intelligence. And I said, well, what is their function? He said, well, to be brief, they're like the CIA spooks for the Office of Naval Intelligence. They are the special agents, the spies, the covert operatives of the Office of Naval Intelligence. I'm like, okay. I said, how do you know this? He said, well, they tried to recruit me before I went to Naval Aviator School. So I do recaps, if you don't mind, for your audience.
Yeah, yes,
So
go ahead.
this alleged hoaxed video was put out by a second-tier video production company who was marketing a Chevy Chase Caddyshack-esque comedy golf video at the time when Victor approached them. So this, second-tier video production company has developed a physiological monitor that has defied experts in the physiological monitor community. They have somehow figured out that DNI is real and put it on the bottom of the film. I mean, none of this
What about
is making
about
sense
the
to me. The
27,
hoax is not.
27 Yankee White? You wanna talk about that?
Yeah. So
The 27,
yes.
27?
Yeah. So it's a perfect. So DNI/27. So we go further on the chain. And 27. This for 5 years. I can't figure out what this is. Victor says it's a catalog system, and a couple of insiders are like, no, 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 no. It's something more. I'm seeing a Linda Moulton Howe documentary. 27 is on the page of every Ronald Reagan briefing paper in 1981 as he's being briefed about extraterrestrials. And I'm like, wait a minute, 27, 27. Then I see another documentary which they confiscate the security clearance list, cosmic magic, and the bottom of that top of the clearance, security clearance, is 27. So I call my military intelligence person who has been helping me. I said, "What is 27?" And he said, "Well, that's the security designation, Yankee White." I'm like, "What is Yankee White?" He said, "Well, John, Yankee White is a umbrella terminology for anyone who has contact with the president of the United States." I'm like, "Can you unpack that a little bit?" He said, "Sure. If you have a briefing folder in front of you, it's got 27 on it, and you don't have the security designation 27, maybe you have, 26 or 18 or whatnot, you have to put that folder away. You can't see it. You can't read it. If you see a film or a video that has 27 or higher on it, you have the clearance of 18, you can't watch this film. 27 is specifically for people that have direct contact with the president of the United States. So remember that as I'm gonna go to the next section here. And, I am completely freaking out at this point because how could a screenwriter, if this is a hoax, can you imagine in '96, before really the internet gets started, a screenwriter knowing that 27 was the highest or what was a security designation for someone um, that met or had contact with the president of the United States? Because I'm gonna tell you how it all it all folded in that this screenwriter could have never have known. So I go on the Jeff Rense program because I have information, but I don't have knowledge still. I don't know anything about this. And I know that in the UFO
Right.
world, people have been contacted who wrote books or go on TV or radio or podcast or 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 whatnot when they are in investigation. And a lot of times, insiders feel if they can trust them, they send them video, they send them film, they send them documents. We've heard about this all the time. This happens. So I thought, let me give it a shot. So I go on the Jeff Rense program. He's an alternative website. And lo and behold, 10 days later, I start getting an email from a man. Caught you on Jeff Rense. You sounded sincere. You got some things right. You got some things wrong. And I'll never forget this line. If you said, I have dealt with the agency that it has deals with the extraterrestrial issue. It's the Defense Intelligence Agency. They've been doing it since the 60s. If I can give your investigation a nudge, I will. I'll never forget that line. And once a month, this man would email me. Um, questions, just how's the investigation going? I later found out kind of a WADE process. He was feeling me out. Can we trust this guy? Is he a goof or, whatever?
Okay.
And so remember the 27th. So on my birthday, I'm kind of a public figure. I guess you could figure out my birthday, but on my birthday, I get from
Maybe.
the horse's mouth. And I want to be very specific. This insider sent me an email from a person inside the Defense Intelligence Agency. Okay. So I was forwarded
Mm.
an email sent to him. And the email sent to him was a retranscribed document or a retranscribed email of the internal investigation about the theft of this film from Area 51. But they didn't call it a theft. It was called an unauthorized viewing, which I thought was very military, very watered down military type speak, something that an idiot like me could never, figure out. But it says the date of the film, April 22nd, 1991. It tells the classification of the alleged gray, who's actually tan with round eyes, that this was called the other gray. He was a haploid, which means he only came with one sexual chromosome. He was a male for all intents and purposes. He was not a placenta
I mean,
being.
to interrupt your flow here real quick. Can
Sure.
we just go back real quick to that email? So he sent you an email. He forwarded you an email from someone else within the government, and within that email, it was documentation about the removal of the tape, or was it the
I
tape
want to be
itself
very
in the email?
no, I want to be very
If
clear.
you can
It
talk
was,
about that.
yeah, it was not, uh, I did not see a classified document because I don't want to go to jail. What I saw was
And-
somebody from the DIA looking at the document, which was an internal investigation of how this film leaked out, and then that person transcribed it on the email to my contact. And it was funny because when I got the email, horse's mouth, there was a FWD : he forwarded it to me, which was not good because saw the other email of the other person's. I digress.
Well,
So this
not
was
your
a
fault.
retranscribed internal memo investigation of the theft of this film. Who was in the viewing gallery watching this interview, the date, the time. So I told you the date, I told you the classification of the bean, and it said that, and I always figured out I could prove this is a hoax because Victor says he took it out of S4. You don't take anything out of S4. They weigh you in the nude when you go in. They weigh you in the nude when you leave. They measure the contents of what you ate. That's a fact. You're not sneaking a thumb drive in the crack of your buttocks. I'm sorry. It's not happening. And I'm like, that's how I'm going to prove this is a hoax. Well, I was wrong. I finally found, after 25 years, how this left. It was allowed to leave. Remember in the movie Ocean's 11 where they let the money go out of the casino because they thought it was the bank vault, the Brinks truck people. Well, I think the memo in the investigation clearly said when the interview was terminated, a United States Air Force cameraman was escorted back to the Groom Lake Photo Lab, not Area 51. I think a hoaxer would have wrote that. The Groom Lake Photo Lab by a
Right.
United States Air Force police officer. How would you like to be in that 15-minute car drive back to Groom Lake after filming this video? 3 days later, not that day, 3 days later, 2 copies of the film were made, and I know that when the copies were made, a DOG, digital overlay graphics, were applied. That's where you get the DNI 27 because you have to put the security clearance on the bottom of that film. This is standard operating procedure in military filming, military media. And the second copy, 3 minutes of it, was placed in a GSA burn bag. I didn't even know what GSA was. It's the Government Services Administration, and they do a myriad of things for the government, like maintenance and road building and government auctions, you name it. And in the burn bag, this is how the burn bag was then placed when it was outside into a gym bag, and this is how it left Area 51. Now, folks, the outside perimeter of Area 51 is draconian. Inside Area 51 security is U.S. Air Force military police security, at least back in 1991. I have talked to 5 people who have been on Area 51, radar people that were there for radar application, other military people. They all said the same story. Yeah, the security inside, some days they check your pockets, some days they wouldn't. Some days they check your purse, some days they wouldn't. Some days they check your purse and your briefcase when you came in. When you were coming out and it was maybe, late in the day, your briefcase would get checked, but not your purse. My point is, it was not this draconian stripped down search to leave and enter Area 51 like it was S4, S2, and like it was in the perimeter. So that's how the film left the base and kind of disproved that I thought this was a hoax.
So, John, maybe I could just interject here real quick, just to kind of recap for the audience. It gets filmed, and then it has to go over to Groom Lake. So the tape leaves S4 Alpha, S2 Alpha. Is that where it was?
Oh yeah. The other thing, and I'll quickly say because it's not a matter that I need to go 20 minutes into. We have also
Yeah.
Have proved and found out that the actual housing, the alien housing complex for the extraterrestrial interrogation and retention program is actually called S2 Alpha. And then beneath the S2 Alpha building and its lower sublevels is S3 and the famous S4. So this film was filmed in S2 Alpha. So go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So it leaves there. It goes over to Groom Lake to be cataloged or to put the DNI insignia on there. And
Correct.
then from there, is this where Mr. Yeager, is he the one that helped Victor? And then they went, and then from there,
Well, I
it
wasn't supposed to
left
say names, but yeah.
Arizona.
Yeah, so yeah.
Oh, sorry. I
So
thought you'd already
that's all
given
right.
that name out.
That's all right. Oh, I know. That's all right. I have. So the report
think we
says
edited
that
that out.
Joseph Yeager, yeah, Joseph Yeager helped Victor sell the film to a third party. That's what it said. He helped to sell the film to a third party. Now we've went through 10 Joseph Yeagers. Um, uh, we believe we found the real one living in Nevada. He hasn't answered any of our calls and whatnot. So now the investigation in January, we go to Nevada. But yeah, so when we forever, I want to say this, I thought Victor was Joseph Yeager. Okay. I'm like, I did it. I solved this riddle. Joseph Yeager is not Victor. I want to publicly say I've got it wrong. I thought it was, and I jumped the gun, but Joseph Yeager is not Victor. His girlfriend, uh, and any of his family members, even though I know a lot about the one Joseph Yeager that I thought was him, was Victor. He's not him. So, anyways, so now I look towards the bottom of the email. So it leaves S2 Alpha, goes to the photo lab. It escapes Area 51. I love that word, in a burn bag. And 5 years later, Victor approaches this second tier video production company, calls them up out of the blue. This has been verified by the CEO, verified by the director, Jeff Broadstreet. A man called us out of the blue, said, I got a 3-minute videotape of an alien being interrogated in an underground government facility. So, I can tell you that Victor is not an actor. And everyone told me, well, if you prove who Victor is, you prove the video. So Victor's not an actor. Victor was a government employee who was retired when he approached Rocket Pictures. Kind of just having
And that's
all
a
of his ducks
fact.
in a row, I believe. Excuse me?
And that's a fact, right? It's a fact that he was a government employee. They vetted him. Rocket Pictures vetted him, correct?
Jeff Broadstreet spent two weeks vetting him. And it's funny because an intelligence asset who didn't really know anything about the film said there was listen to me, folks. There was scuttlebutt amongst our intelligence group. Every truck drivers, pro wrestlers, we all have coffee clutch groups. He said, I remember back in 96, there was scuttlebutt that some director in Hollywood was putting the pedal to the metal, trying to vet Victor, who took the film out. I'm like, you can't be. I'm like, well, it kind of backs up. So here I have a military intelligence asset who doesn't even know the director, verifying what the director told me. And that has happened so much in my investigation where two people from opposite ends of the universe who don't know each other and don't even know what I'm investigating, say the same thing. That cohesion was bizarre in this investigation. And so Victor comes to the studios of Rocket Pictures, and he says that Fox and other major networks were unable and unwilling to protect his identity, and Rocket Pictures, said, yes, we will do whatever we can to protect it. And like his personality on the original documentary, and then like his personality, he did a publicity radio interview for an hour and a half on the Art Bell Coast to Coast show. The director said,
Okay.
I can tell you a couple of things about him. He didn't have a driver's license. He didn't drive to our office in Beverly Hills. He took a cab. He seemed to be like off-grid type guy, very nervous, and a, quote, major pain in the ass. And you could see this in the original documentary, the Art Bell Coast to Coast interview. The guy's, he's just a
That
jerk.
comes across.
Very specific.
That
He's
comes across
arguing for
clearly.
a couple of minutes. Yeah. Well, we had a retired FBI go over the testimony, and two police officers from the Reed School of Lie Detection based in Chicago here. FBI, two police officers. Here's what they said. That Victor displayed characteristics of a whistleblower. He used dark humor. His speech and his pattern was that of someone who was nervous. The FBI, former FBI agent said that he used checking, which is correcting the interviewee, correcting the other person. And most of the time, liars just want a smooth conversation. They don't want any speed bumps. And the FBI agent was floored. He's like, this guy is going to this radio interview, this actor, let's say, this alleged hoaxed actor. He is arguing for a minute and a half that they gave him the wrong number. He starts arguing with this ufologist, Sean David Morton, that Sean David Morton was incorrect on a paragraph of his monthly newsletter. I mean, just, bizarre stuff that we all felt, the experts felt. There's no way this was an actor. And the director told us
Right.
that he wasn't an actor. He was a government employee. So let's go back to the memo, to the investigation memo. So now my hands start shaking. These were the military people in the viewing gallery, like a surgical gallery, watching the thought projection interview. Didn't call it telepathic, thought projection interview. Apparently, these beings throw and produce the thought in your brain. You don't even have to, you come into the room and you would hear, I'm just paraphrasing. Oh, I know what question you want to ask me. Well, here's the answer. But they called it thought projection. So I get a list of names of men. Now,
And we don't want to
this is
put that
when it
list of
became,
names up, right? Because I've got that. So
please,
we don't have
I will go
okay,
over
we
two
won't put that
names.
list up. Okay, we're not
Thank
gonna
you.
do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I will go over two names because they are no longer with us. So the first name is a military intelligence with the Army. I Google him, and he was with TRW when the film took place. I'm like, well, this is a hoax. I call Sean David Morton, a ufologist. He's like, TRW? Family worked for TRW. It's like a black arm of the government. That
Which is
that
also
doesn't
referenced in the
discount.
Wilson Davis memo. I think on page 15 of the Wilson Davis memo, it's referenced in there as
Right.
well. So if anybody doesn't know who that is, I'll put a link in the bottom to the Wilson
Yeah.
Davis memo. You can check that out.
But again, I'm not a ufologist. TRW, I'm in the car business. I'm thinking it's a credit reporting company, which they did which is really weird for a government spook agency to also form a company that collects your data. Just think about that. But anyways, well, I'm like, wow, he's still alive too, because I have a program that, can research people. Now we go to the next person. It's really interesting, folks. Listen to this. Forget the film. Listen to what was sent to me. So the next name is a vice admiral. I Google him. I'm like, holy cow, he's dead. We look. Remember the 27 contact with the president of the United States, Admiral Edward Schieffer, nicknamed Ted. What did he do in 91? He was Colin Powell's chief intelligence liaison, meaning when Colin Powell, who was head of the Joint Chiefs in 91, would go into the Oval Office, he would have Edward Schieffer with him, Jr., sorry, and he would be the man that would be handing documents and files to Colin Powell as he was talking to George Bush. Ladies and gentlemen, hence the number 27 on the bottom of this film. This film was being directly disseminated to Colin Powell or to George H. Bush back in 1991. That's why there's 27 on there. So we kind of proved that Victor really didn't realize what that cataloging, that system was. Because it was kind of a cataloging, but it was a cataloging security designation. So I go to the next person. Again, another live person is on Wikipedia. I go to the next person, Captain of Naval Intelligence. Okay, I'm jumping the gun. Captain of Naval Intelligence. I Wikipedia. He retires a vice admiral in 21. I told one of my investigators, Chris Jackson, it's a hoax. They've got it down as a captain in naval intelligence. Intelligently, my investigator goes, isn't this investigation from like the mid 90s? I'm like, maybe, yeah, 91 to 93, 4, 5. He goes, well, don't you think back in the 90s, he was just a captain and then retired 20 years later? And I'm like, oh my God, that doesn't prove it's a hoax at all. I email him. I get his email. Let me repeat this because I don't want to mince my words. I email him. And I'm a disarming human being. I think people can see that from my personality. That's been one of my hallmarks of my investigation. I make people feel at ease. I make people feel they can trust me. I put people, I don't come at them aggressively. So I start emailing this vice admiral who was watching this interview in 91. And we're going back and forth and, don't call me admiral, call me by my nickname. Here's my nickname. I don't wear the uniform anymore. That was a specific quote. I'm like, Jesus, this guy's being informal. I start joking with him because we had like 3 or 4 emails. I joke with him, look, I really want to come to Virginia where you live. I heard that these gas stations have this incredible fried chicken. He laughs back. He said, yeah, I've had it. And he goes, if you ever make it to Virginia, folks, I mean, this is the interaction. If you ever make it to Virginia, yeah, I'll take you to get some fried chicken. We'll get, we'll fill up your car and we're laughing. So the 4th email, he said, look, you emailed me, you're doing a documentary. What's the documentary about? I write him back. I'm like, look, Admiral, please just, I've had relatives in the military. My dad was in the Navy. My godfather died in Vietnam. When I ran for Congress, the military and veterans was the top of the pyramid of my platform. Please bear with me. This was just sent to me, and I sent this admiral who ran the DIA, an internal investigation of the DIA. He ghosts me. He doesn't email me back. I wait 3 days. I email him, no answer. I wait 3 weeks. You know, Admiral blah blah. Are you mad? This is just something I would ghost me, ghost me, ghost me, ghost me. Has never contacted me since. A military person told me an interesting anecdotal story very quick that most people in the military are honorable. And if they are honorable, they usually won't lie to you. What they will do is ignore you. And that's what happened to me. And I told this interaction to 3 or 4 military people. They all said the same thing. You caught him with his pants down. He's write you back. He's not going to put his foot into his mouth that he didn't, that he wasn't there. This is crazy. I'm nuts. We would all say nothing. We would not write you back. And I asked, I said,
Maybe
do you
can we
think
just
he
recap
called the,
this little?
go ahead.
So just to recap real quick before you keep going with this. So
Yep.
you had a list of names from your source, from your whistleblower. This individual's name was on that list. You found him, you emailed him, and you built a little bit of rapport with him over 3 or 4 emails. And then he's like, okay, great. What's the documentary about? And then you kind of lay it on him. And then he goes incommunicado forever.
Right.
Is that where we're
Right.
at? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So I give his email to Dr. Sala of Exopolitics. This Dr. Sala he just took care of disputes between countries, very respected. I think he was a professor at University of Tennessee. Emails him and says, I want to ask you some questions, this and that. Emails Dr. Sala back, proving to Dr. Sala that I, wasn't lying. It's a real human being. And he's like, I don't wear the uniform anymore or whatever. I'm not involved in the DIA anymore. And I really don't wish to answer any questions, pertaining to that. So Dr. Sala was floored, like, wow, this guy is real. He did ghost you because he emailed me. Why wouldn't he email you back? So let's get into the meat of this. Now, there's a doctor, and this leaked on the internet, Craig McPherson. I thought it was a doctor in Connecticut. He actually is a deep state guy that was basically lived at Los Alamos in Area 51. Linda Moulton Howe interviewed him in 1995. Even the report was unsure of who he was. It said scientist with a question mark. So, they weren't even unsure. And of course they didn't know what he was. He wasn't with the military. So I had another insider tells me that bears out what, you would, every time you have a person's name in your report, you have to designate who they are. Are they a general? Are they this or that? And so it just said scientist with a question mark. So again, another real person who was involved basically in ufology, for lack of a better definition. I go to the next person. He's a doctor with a nickname. I find how he died, or what state he died. I find his widow. I want to repeat this. I found the widow of allegedly the doctor to the alien's right, to our left, who comes into the room to help the alien. I talked to his widow. Her very short name, let's call her Kim. You're going to start telling an 80-year-old woman that, yeah, he's on the alien's right, our left, that your husband was involved with extraterrestrials. I was very uncomfortable. So I said, look, this came across my desk. I just want to ask you, do you think this is possible? I can't find anything about your husband. There's a pause. She doesn't hang up. She doesn't laugh at me. He's like, well, that's very interesting, John. A light bulb is going off over my head. Like, what? He's like, well, it's been a dark secret in my family. I'm like, is this happening? He's like, what I mean by that is my husband, she used his nickname, never, ever, ever spoke about his time in the U.S. Army Medical Corps. Folks, I never told her U.S. Army Medical Corps, but that was on the memo. His name, his nickname, Doctor, U.S. Army Medical Corps. I said, what is the medical corps? She's like, well, that's who trains the doctors, and that's their division that they belong to. She said, John, let me tell you a quick story. When we have lots of people in our friend group from Vietnam, World War II, Korea, She said they all have humorous stories about boot camp, a drill instructor, or maybe the town that they were stationed in. Everyone always asked me, and everyone was curious, including me, why, used his nickname again, my husband never, ever, ever spoke about anything to do with his time in the military. Never. He said, John, we would have fights about it. Like, what are you hiding from me? I would tell him. Imagine
Mhm.
me hearing this on the phone. I'm expecting this woman to laugh at me and hang up the phone. He's telling me that her husband was secretive. Let me just stop here. Victor in the first documentary says that the medical staff, this is a quote from 1996. The medical staff is chosen at Area 51 and at S4 and S2 more for their ability to keep secrets than their medical knowledge. And then you have this wife 30 years later saying, my husband was, Secret Squirrel, the cartoon character. She didn't say that, I'm using a metaphor. So I couldn't believe it. She's like, I said, can I send you the film? I send her the film. I call her back in 5 minutes. She's like, that's my husband to our left. I said, let me verify. That's your husband. His eyes and nose, the bridge of his nose on the beans right, our left. She's like, that's my husband. So I have a person fingering a medical doctor in the room. I have a memo that says he was in the room. I really could have stopped there at my investigation, but I didn't. So uh, so I have all of this and I'm like, and then it said the vocations of the telepaths. There was 2 telepaths and it said their vocation. I won't go into it. Um,
Mhm.
and, and then it said that Wendell Stevens, a ufologist, Victor eventually, after the rocket picture thing, gave the film, the 16 millimeter film to Wendell Stevens, along with a cache of documents that said the United States investigation into extraterrestrial biological beings. It had photos of autopsies, documents, you name it. That we have never has never resurfaced. But then we heard that there was a FBI raid on Bob Dean's safety deposit box that allegedly contained this information in Paradise Valley, Arizona. Well, I'm not a typical ufologist. What do you think I did? I FOIA'd FBI. Give me the name the raid. Give me the information. Give me what you found. They wrote back, we cannot release information on another, and I'm paraphrasing, folks, and I have COVID brain, so bear with me. We
Yeah.
cannot divulge information on another citizen, private information, nor can we divulge the information of the contents of the raid at the bank in Paradise Valley, Arizona. I'm like, they just they just said they did it. And we know we did it because we have
Right.
people that remember the infamous bank raid in the newspaper. I've talked with 2 or 3 people from Paradise Valley, one of them a pro wrestler, believe it or not. I remember that in the newspaper. Okay, I guess it was a big deal.
Mm.
So we have things verifying this memo that I could have never imagined in a million years that this would possibly be, true. So now to verify the S2, S4, we go to Rick Doty, and I know he's an intelligence, counterintelligence agent. And he said, look, I don't know much about the film. He said, but I can tell you S2 alpha is real. That is where people check in to go to S3, S4, or the levels beneath S2 alpha. He said, I was the counterintelligence person at S2 Alpha. I was never down in S4. I can't tell you what happened in S4. He goes, but there were not beans at S4, John. The beans were housed, he said, at S2 Alpha. And that was the alien housing containment. So people are making fun of me on the internet, on YouTube, in a chat room. And all of a sudden, a Sergeant Michael Munoz, Master Sergeant Michael Munoz, pops in to the conversation. And he writes an essay about Papoose Lake, S4, S2. Jon Stewart is correct. Rick Doty's telling the truth. How do I know? I was there. Here's how you do this. Here's how you order a wall clock. I'm not lying to you. Here's how you order a wall clock. Here's how you get in a dignitary. Here's the security. Here's the security steps you take for taking out the trash. I mean, it was unbelievable. People were like, and I'm like, I don't believe this is
He's
happening.
giving
So I've been
specifics
communicating. Yeah,
on the actual facility that you can vet and check to make sure he knows what he's talking about at the very least.
that's correct. And I sent I sent it. He sent me a I'm sorry, DD-14 some that's like your papers, like your where they send
Mhm.
places. I sent everything he sent me, on the YouTube chat and on the emails that he sent me because he followed up, and I sent it to Doty. Doty's like, "This is this is verbatim, John. This guy's got everything correct." He talks about Yankee white security designation as far as a dignitary was concerned. So, like, this is pretty incredible. This is, um and so now the special effects guy calls me back. He said, I saw your film again. I analyzed it again. He goes, something's really a head shaker. I'm like, what's that? He goes, John, every foam latex doll, animatronic doll made since the 60s has creases under the
Mhm.
armpits. I'm like, okay, why? He's like, well, during the drying process, about three-fourths of the way through, you let the arms droop down, and in that drying process, it forms creases. He sends me like 30 examples of animatronic and foam dolls in movies, and you see the crease. He's like, there's a head scratcher. Your doll has no crease. Your alien has no crease. He goes, John, I'm not saying it's not an animatronic doll. He goes, but this is not something that someone made in their garage. Now somebody comes over where one of the shoulders looks deflated on the beam. So I sent that to him. I sent that even to a skeptic, an skeptic, and they said it looks like it's a shadow, mimicking like it was just like a piece of material that the arm was, because you see the full body in a couple of shots when the medic shines the light on the thorax region of the alien. You see the arms, you see the thoracic region of it. And another thing I want to say as we're talking about the effects and special effects, the film originally, and I think I sent you a picture, was when Victor gave the
Yep.
film over, it had this
This one
bluish
here.
hue. We go, boy, you're doing good on this. That is the left side. You can see the
Mhm.
arm of the military general on the foreground on the left. It's that bluish
Mhm.
hue that originally came to Rocket. The production company darkened it for dramatic effect, which I think kinda lend everyone thinking immediately that it was a hoax, it's a puppet, let's keep it dark. But that's on the left, the
Mhm.
blue hue, that's how it came to Rocket Pictures.
Mhm. And Uh, can we talk for a second about like what it would like because the money doesn't make sense, right? Because if you're going to produce this, it's going to cost X number of dollars, like 100 grand, something like that. And then what did Victor get paid for this? Like 40 grand, something like that. And so can you talk a little bit about how that really doesn't add up either?
Or, a couple of other ufologists, a couple of other, people in the field, said to me, "Here's another thing that doesn't add up. Why?" You know? Why? The money wasn't there. I researched that. The UPN network. This was on not on Fox. This was on the UPN network, was an upstart struggling network. On a program, a weekly program called Strange Universe. I found out about Strange Universe, trying to be a good journalist. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just telling you how I just didn't take anything at face value. Strange Universe was such in financial dire that straits that they could not afford to pay their crew for the first 4 episodes of their season with on the UPN network. That's how much they were struggling. And we have had lowball figures of producing this, the alien, the studio, the craft catering, the sound, the physiological monitor, people in military, wardrobe that were, at least 60, 70, $80,000 to produce this. They also did B-roll. They did 3 segments of fake telepathic interviews where there was the interviewer, the scientist, and then an alien in a fake alien costume. 3 of them. And then they also did location shooting. This easily was 70, 80 grand. And that's backed up by the CEO, Tom Coleman. They won't give me a roundabout. They won't give me a direct figure. We're thinking they were roundabouting 30, 35-ish. They paid to Victor. So when you talk about everyone getting paid at Rocket giving this to Reicher Entertainment that owns Strange Universe, Rocket got paid. And then Reicher, had to put this on and would get paid from the UPN network. So there was no massive profit for anyone to make any sense to film this, to hoax this. And again, I am sitting here in 2023, not one person, government, Hollywood ufologist with credible irrefutable evidence has ever come forward in 30 years to say that this is to prove that this is a hoax. Now, people, oh, it's been proven. No, it's not been proven a hoax. There was a person, Stephen Cambia, Truth Seekers, great guy. He's an ardent skeptic. He busting all these UFO people about lies and whatnot, and I respect him. But he glibly said, "Oh, yeah, somebody said that Bob Dean had the same tie as Victor. It was Victor. Bob Dean was Victor, and Jeff Broadstreet was asking the questions. He's the same person that was answering them under voice distortion in our documentary. We take Jeff Broadstreet's voice and we take the undistorted Victor voice. It's nowhere near. It's actually more like Bob Lazar, if anything. We showed Robert Dean's tie. It's a thick yellow stripe. Victor had a thin silver stripe. So all of this, it's like people are terrified that could be true. All of this Mandela effect. Oh, that's been proven a hoax. No, it's not. And then the person that created the alleged alien animatronic or puppet, when somebody said, well, it's a hand puppet. I know it's a hand puppet made with dragon skin, special effects, latex. And then you see that and the mouth opens and closes. It's got the resting bitch face at one point, the bottom lip. And then I look at the video today and you can't even get your hand. The alien's mouth, the chin is so narrow. And not only does he open his mouth, the eyebrow ridge around the ocular circuit goes up and down in millimeter movements. You put that in. Why would you do that on a film that, that people were really going to analyze or had the ability to analyze back in 1996? So nothing is making sense.
A couple things
But
I
let
just
me
wanted to
jump
touch
forward
on
for you.
there, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
Bob Dean had, I don't know, 30, 40-year career in ufology. There's no way he was going to throw it down the drain by being part of
No.
a hoax. So
No.
that's not real.
No.
And then the other thing is, I want to go back to Victor real quick if we can, because I know Victor came out 3 different times,
Correct, sir.
which is mysterious. I mean, he's a mysterious character anyway, but it's mysterious that he comes out in 1997 and then only does Art Bell, I think in the same year. And then 11 years later comes out one and final time, right?
06. Yeah, 10, 11
So
was 96. He came to Rocket. 08, he comes out, and they go up on the Santa Monica Hills and interview him. And
which is
Jeff
very,
Broadstreet, CRV.
which is just, it's weird to me that someone would do that, only get paid a certain amount of money when the production of this is going to be, $80,000, $90,000, probably on the cheap end, to do it right.
Exactly. And I know the psychological makeup of Victor because I've talked to so many people. I hold a degree in counseling psychology, so I know people. I know I know psychology enough to analyze someone even at a distance. And I get Victor. You put your name, your reputation, potentially your life on the line for a minimum amount of money back in 1996. You have all of these UFO people. It's real. It's hoax. And like he says in the follow-up documentary where he claims he was dying, he had months to live, that everyone's saying yes or no, it's real or it's not, but no one's doing any follow-up, no FOIAs, nothing. And he just couldn't believe
And
that
that's the
after putting
problem.
his life and career on the line, not one person decided to do a real expose, find out who he was, find out the provenance. There's one person in Europe that analyzed the film, but he did was see little movements. That's still not proving if that's animatronic, human, or that's from the beam. So I'm really the first person that has come forward and done this comprehensive investigation about Victor, the film, the men in the film, and I have not kept this secret. I've taken this list to several ufologists. One of them, Linda Moulton Howe, said, "Look, I can't believe." He was like, "This almost trumps the Wilson memo or the MJ-12 documents." This is Linda Howe's comment to me. I said, "Why?" She said, "You have living people on this list that can be Wikipedia'd and Googled, and you have contacted 2 of them. You've contacted a widow." She's like, "John, in ufology, and no one knows these names, John. These aren't retreads. You and quote, you have gold here." So when she said that to me, I made an appointment, believe it or not, with the New York Times. Very quick story. In about an hour and a half into our meeting where I was laying out this investigation, Ralph Blumenthal went, "Stop. We believe you." So
Mhm.
he's like, "You did a great
And that's
job. I
Ralph
can't believe you
Blumenthal and
actually."
Leslie King you were talking
That's
to,
correct.
right?
That's correct. This was
Right.
August of
At the New York
2022.
Times. Sure that's clear.
Yes, sir. We met at the Midtown Manhattan, August of 2022. And they said, "Look, we can't take this to the New York Times. They're gonna laugh us out of the building. An alien retention. We've got a film. We need a government employee to come forward." I'm like, "Well, nice meeting you, and I'll never see you again because that's never gonna happen, right?" 6 months
Yeah.
later, now, right after that meeting, I take my investigation back to uh, Representative Gallagher in Wisconsin because he did the NDAA whistleblower amendment. I fly to Washington, okay, take my packet to Tim Burchett, who was going to head up the first committee on it. And, 4 months later, after I'm going around Congress handing out these pictures and an investigation, lo and behold, David Grush comes forward. And what does he do? He tells the exact same story that I have been telling people, that the government has extraterrestrial biological beings. They have their craft. They've reversed engineered the biological material, the flight suits, the avionics, the weapon system,
Yeah.
or the life support system, the metallurgy. And this is when my wife stood up and went, "Oh, and the United States government has murdered people to keep this secret." And that's what my wife said. "You are going back to Congress and you're going to find somebody to give legitimacy to your investigation that, hey, Jon Stewart was here. This is what he handed over," kind of to hide in the public. And when a government agent with acute clearance tells you people were murdered for this, scares you, scares you. I've,
So I'll just go real quick. So another
yeah,
thing that everybody knows David Grush, right? But one thing people maybe don't know as much about is Colonel Carl Nell has basically validated everything he has said. And Colonel Carl Nell is not some mid-level government official. He is a person who would be in position to know. So if
right.
anybody, I could put a link for an interview with that somebody did on him. But he's coming out and saying it. And there's your proof right there. So anyway, go ahead.
I just wanted, I like honoring my hosts with bombshells. And so I
Mhm.
also get a contact with the National Air and Space Intelligence Center. This is not David Grush. We all thought it was. He's an agent with the NAISC in Bright Pat. And I, again, have a great email with him. Then we finally speak on the phone. It was right before Thanksgiving. And so I'll give you a big bombshell. He said, "Look, I'm going to tell you something that I have never seen on the internet. Not any ufologist has ever put this on the internet anywhere. This is nowhere. I'm going to give it to you." I'm like, "Oh, wow, a gift right before Christmas." He said, "John, there's a new designation of extraterrestrials the government program, inside the know," he said. And I said, "Okay, thank you. What is it?" He said, "It's saber, like a sword, SABER." So I'm telling your viewers, the new official designation by those in the know, with subcontractors and in the government people in this program, is a SABER, synthetic astrobiological extraterrestrial races. That is the new designation of these beings in the program. So I don't know why that's not floating around more on the internet. I think that's bombshell news, in parallel with the Thomas Wilson memo. And when this whole list of names comes out in my documentary, I think this is going to blow, the MJ12 documents out of the water. My only fear is I don't want these men to be, have CNN trucks outside their condos or their homes or businesses. And so I struggle with that, but they've done nothing wrong. And I think I've been continually to being helped by people in the know in these programs or retired agents because I'm trustworthy. I won't give up, my inside sources, and because I've never attacked the military. I get this. We first got this information in '47 at the height when Stalin. We still didn't know what Stalin was going to do with the Soviet Union. Was he going to spread communism over Europe? We had the bomb. They didn't. I understand the need for secrecy completely. The cat is out of the bag. Nothing ever hides forever. And I just want to say, and I've said this all the time, as far as the government, I respect those that have had to keep this secret. It's an awful thing to be foisted upon you in your career. But I just want to help the government, be one of the people, help the government to come out of the closet with the extraterrestrial issue. The secrecy is starting to mock our citizenship and to belittle our loyalty as American citizens. And it's got to end. Do we need every single secret of the extraterrestrial program? No. Do we need confirmation that they've been coming here for a long time? And obviously they're not meaning any malicious intent. Yes. And I think it's time.
Yeah. Well, I've thought about this before we did this interview, John, and I was like, you know what? John is probably the perfect guy to talk about this piece of footage, because you are very personable. You're not intimidating at all. You tell it how it is. And this is such a dynamite piece of footage that most people won't even touch it, right? Because it's
No.
too much. And it seems like in today's ufology, everything is about slow disclosure, right? We'll send out a picture here. We'll tell people that UFOs are real, but don't talk about biologics that much, or maybe they can't, or whatever the reason is. It's like a slow process. And here you are with this piece of footage that has been around since 1997. It's done the rounds on the internet. Most people say one of two things. It makes me feel uncomfortable, which I'll admit it makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't know if it's real or not. Or they just outright say, this is BS. It's a total hoax. And I'll say one more thing before I get throw it back to you. In the last time we saw Victor in 2008, he came across upset that nobody actually was doing an investigation to prove him wrong. He wanted people to dig in. He wanted people to say, prove me wrong, which I think is very interesting. And I applaud you for that.
Yeah, he's
So,
you know, the internet keyboard warriors condemn me for getting personal and stuff like this on podcasts, but looking for Victor for 5 years has changed me in ways I never could imagine. I found out the depths of my tenacity. I never was a person that was uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. And I always tell people if I would have been
yeah.
comfortable with being uncomfortable, like going to people asking for money or, knocking down doors, I would have been governor of Illinois by now. And I'm finally at a stage in my life where I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's how I got success with this. But this pedantic, not so nice scientist has changed my life. I'm the happiest I've ever been. And I don't say that he knew, searching for him would produce these results. I'm just telling you the after effects of this investigation. And I think when the documentary comes out next year, that this is going to change the world. As one retired official of the Vatican, really choosing my words here, told me in Cuba, in Havana,
Yeah.
in broken English and in Spanish. I'm sorry, in broken Spanish with Parkinson disease. If you can prove that this film is correct and this is real, you have the most important historical document in human history. Could we argue with him? And he said, unless someone comes with a VHS tape of the parting of the Red Sea or a Polaroid of Jesus being crucified, you prove this film correct and is authentic, you're holding the most important historical document in human history. So there's pretty impactful things that are coming down the pike, and we're not attacking the government. We just want to let's get this all out and let's open the open. I hope this brings the country together. I think it will, and we need to move on as a country, as a planet, as a complete society. We're on
Species.
this little rock going 1,000 miles an hour in this vast universe. I mean, when you really get down to it, it's more than just bashing someone over the head for a $10 toaster at Black Friday at Target. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
glib, but that is the truth.
And I'll just say one more thing before we wrap it up here, if you want.
Yeah.
I agree that the government doesn't need to tell us everything. There's obviously national security involved. I don't think anybody's advocating for that, but I think the idea that we're not alone, that we've never been alone, that general idea, I think should be kind of general knowledge by this point. And I think that it needs to step up here. And it seems like we're heading in that the right direction. The government's certainly making plays right now. If anyone's paying attention, they're making plays to kind of bring this out. So, and I think you're doing your part. I think you're doing a great job. I just want to thank
Thank
you
you.
for taking your time today. And yeah, is there anything else you want to leave us with? Tell people how they can find you, how they can help the investigation, anything like that?
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to bring up too was so many intelligence and military people said you're never going to have the government say we don't know what's in our skies. And the day that I heard that, I think it was on a Pentagon press conference. I fell off my chair. That was like I can tell your viewers like the most inside, like a dead man switch of oh it's coming, switch was coming was the day the government said we don't know what that is. So I'll leave you with that. But, yeah, I anybody that would like to contact me about this investigation, we've been getting, swamped with people. "Hey, my dad did this. Let me put you in contact with him. I know this." It's been great. And I'll just give you my email. It's John, Jon, Alan, Stewart at AOL.com. Yes, I still have AOL. John Allen Stewart at AOL.com. I don't know if you wanna put it in post-production on the bottom. Please feel free to email me. I know I'm bald. I know I'm chubby. I know I was a bad guy in wrestling, so you don't have to email me. I've had some very bizarre emails, talking about what I did to Sergeant Slaughter in 1990. Okay, I get it. But if there's anybody that's serious about this investigation, or if you want to have a comment about it, I'm all ears, and I'm very good about answering people's emails back. So email back. So I welcome anybody that has any information or comments about this investigation. And thank you for having me on.
Well, you're very welcome, John. And, it's great to have you here. Wish you best of luck. Can't wait to see the documentary. And you have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast. If you like this content and you want to see more like it, please hit that like button and that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel.